has found a new home. House. Now in production in Hollywood and hell.
House is a 1986 horror comedy filmed by Steve Miner, who also directed Lake Placid, Halloween H2O, which is pretty good considering it's like the 7th or 8th of the series, and Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, which, in my opinion, are the two strongest films of that entire franchise. House was filmed on a budget of $3 million, according to Wikipedia, and it went on to make $22 million. And there's two pretty famous producers on the movie, one of which is Sean S. Cunningham, who directed Friday the 13th Part 1, and another producer is Roger Corman, who produced pretty much every horror movie ever and a lot of other movies that ever existed. He's a pretty big deal. He's done a lot. He's made a lot of movies. If you don't know who Roger Corman is, then I don't know what to tell you. He's sort of a big deal. So I've seen a couple of trailers for this movie, and so one of them, at least one of them, makes this movie look like a horror comedy, like a haunted house movie, and that's pretty spot on. That's what it is. And there's another one that makes the movie kind of look like a slasher. It's got the music from Friday the 13th Part 1, like in the background, and as I recall, there's some like POV shots. So that's pretty typical standard slasher stuff. And a little side note, the person that did the music for Friday the 13th, I forget his name right now, but he did the music for this movie as well. So that makes more sense when you put that in consideration. What's House about? So the story follows Roger. He's a Vietnam vet and writer. And so some time ago, he was staying with his aunt, and his son disappeared under mysterious and unusual circumstances. And as a result of his son's disappearance, his marriage failed, and his writing career is kind of going down the toilet. Sometime later, his aunt dies, or she kills herself, and then Roger inherits her estate. So he decides to move into her house for a while for some isolation as he's writing his next novel about his Vietnam War experiences. And so as he's staying in the house, he sees an apparition of his dead aunt. And she tells him that the house knows everything about him and he should leave. And about this time, the house starts tormenting Roger. And at the same time, Roger is kind of dealing with his own internal demons. So, what did I like about this movie? So, this is an 80s movie. And with that, there's like a certain aesthetic that I really like. I can pretty much watch anything that's from the 80s. It just has a look and a certain kind of quality to it that I can't quite put my finger on. But I like it. I mean, I really enjoy movies that are from the 80s. I like how they look. Another thing that's pretty cool about this movie is the actual house. There's tons of exterior shots to this house, and it looks really cool. And they did a great job on picking this house. And there's two characters that are pretty likable. You got Roger and Harald. Roger, he's a pretty well-developed guy. He's got a big old backstory to Vietnam vet. He's a writer. He's failing in his marriage. His marriage failed. His son has disappeared, so he's got a backstory. And he's also very likable and funny. So then that's where Harald comes in. He's also very funny. And just a little side note, Harald is played by the guy that's in Cheers, Norman Cheers. And he's funny in that too. So that's where a lot of the comedy is these two characters playing off of each other. And it works. They have good chemistry. I just wish they were together more.
Woman lived here before you was nuts. Biggest bitch under the sun. Just a senile old hag, really. Wouldn't be surprised if someone just got fed up and offed her, you know what I mean?
She was my aunt.
Heart of gold, though.
So this movie is pretty fast paced. It's not slow at all. As soon as it starts going, it doesn't stop. You know, there's lots of different kind of creatures, some cool effects, and it just, once it starts, it does not slow down. So this movie predates CGI, so naturally everything is done practical. And there's some great creature effects and like special effects in this movie. The monsters in this movie remind me a lot of like things from The Evil Dead and Dead Alive. So there's this kind of a witch monster who looks great. There's these little evil twin kind of things that look fantastic. There's a monster that lives in a closet who kind of represents what war is. It's like, I think they call it the war monster. Then there's Ben, who is this zombie from Vietnam. But everything's done practical, and everything looks very good. Another neat thing about this movie is they show a computer, and so keep in mind this movie is from the 80s. So computers back then were quite big and enormous. So I like it when you watch movies, kind of older movies, and they show modern technology of the time, because it always looks like it's quite antiquated by today's standards. So another thing that kind of spoke to me is there's a scene with this little kid, and he's playing with He-Man toys, and the figure he's playing with, I think it's called B-Man or something, but I had B-Man, so I thought it was cool to see my childhood toys on the big screen. So, what did I dislike about this movie? Well, I didn't really dislike a whole lot. So there's this one scene where they're showing the house, and there's this little leaf hanging down from the top of the frame, kind of in the middle. I will demonstrate. It's kind of like this. There's this little thing just hanging down, and I thought that was a little distracting. And I know that is a big old nitpick, and really not important at all, but it just, there's this little leaf just kind of levitating in the screen, and it distracted me. I'll tell you what distracted me even more than that. There's this kid who has a horrible haircut, and I think it's the director's kid, and man, he has the horrible haircut. It's like a mullet of some kind, and that actually took me out of the story, because I was just thinking, wow, damn it, that is a horrible haircut. What? Who lets their kid walk around like that? I mean, seriously. And so in this movie, there's this weird woman who I can't quite understand her. So there's this scene in the movie where this woman drops by because she wants Roger to watch her kid while she goes out. Keep in mind, this woman does not know Roger. He's essentially a complete stranger. And then through some series of events, Roger and the kid end up in the bathroom together, and the kid's crying. So the mom sees Roger exit the bathroom with the kid crying, and she continues to let Roger watch him as she goes out. So I can't think of any mother that would do that would see somebody walk out of the bathroom with their kid crying, then have no reservations with that at all. That seems like a bit of a red flag to me. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. So something I feel like the movie could have done a little bit better is have more of Roger and Harald together. Because the movie is funniest when those two characters are together, and so, but they're not together very much, because usually when Harald shows up, Roger's trying to hide from him and trying to get away, trying to get isolated. So I feel like the movie missed an opportunity at a lot of good humor by not letting these two characters have more screen time together. So like I said, Roger's character was developed. He's likable. So later on, there's a scene in the movie where Roger thinks he killed someone, and to his mind, he killed a person. And then the police arrive, and then he hides the body. And to this point, Roger's been pretty like a responsible guy. So that kind of threw me out, because the character that they presented would never do that. He wouldn't hide from that responsibility. He would own up to it. So I thought it was kind of strange when he thought he killed someone, and then he went and hid their body so the police wouldn't see it. I just don't think he would do that. His character wouldn't do that. His character would fess up to the responsibility. So I thought that was kind of strange. But having said that, it was House from 1986, so I mean, I guess I gotta give him some slack, because it's just a cheesy horror movie. So something else this movie, I feel like they could have done better, is play up the haunted house aspect more. So whereas they show all these exterior shots of the house and it looks good, the interior of the house is pretty much non-existent. So what they do show is like this main little area of the house. Like when you first walk in, there's this cool little staircase. Then there's this big stained glass window, a peacock, which I do think looks very good. But this is clearly on a soundstage, and that's really all you see of the house from the inside. So for a movie that is called House, I feel like the house should be more of an active character in the movie. And in this one, it's not. So while we see a lot of exterior shots of the house, and the house does look very good, what they don't do is show you much on the inside of the house. For haunted house movies, usually the house is a pretty important character in the movie. You know, the house is a character of itself. In this movie, the house really isn't a character. And so when I watch movies now, I'm looking hard to try to find any kind of movie errors. And I found a couple errors in this. So there's this one scene where this fish on the wall, and it comes to life and it starts flapping around. And if you look pretty close, you can see a hole in the wall where probably the cables and rods were that control it. I don't know why, but I love finding movie errors. It gives me like a little bitty high when I find a movie error. The one you find the most is like a boom light hanging down, which I didn't see any of that in this movie. I just saw that little leaf hanging down in the frame, which technically I don't guess I can call that an error, but it was distracting to me. But it's a nitpick on my part.